and welcome back to My Conscious Dad on your hometown station. If you're just joining us, we're discussing taking responsibility for your kids' results. If you're unsure what that means, it basically just means your kids' results are your results.
Absolutely. Don't live in the illusion that, when your kids are doing great, all of a sudden you can step up and go, hey, look at my kid, look what I created. And then all of a sudden when they're, in a funk, or they're, not behaving the way that it's beneficial to them as young adults, in the community or out in the world, and they're doing mischievous things, all of a sudden now it's like, look what he's doing. Now you're going and complaining and saying, look what he's doing, rather than looking at yourself and saying, how is it that we got to this point? And also looking at what point did I allow this behavior to continue, or I didn't intervene. And intervening doesn't mean that you're being like really confrontive and you're being a jerk. You can intervene from a loving, compassionate place. All intervention means is that you're doing a course correction, that you're committed to causing a shift in the course of direction wherever your kid's going. But the question is have you been proactively and consciously course correcting your child, consistently for the last 18 years, for the last 16 years? Or was there a moment there where you kind of just focused on some of your other kids, or haven't really been consciously aware about your job as a parent? You gotta remember that you made a commitment when you had your son or daughter that you were gonna continue to be that role model for them, and that you were going to teach them morals and values, and you were going to teach them how to think for themselves and to be able to make powerful choices for them. And if you didn't, then you didn't. But being a conscious parent sometimes is just you awaking and realizing, you know what, I want to get back to that. Or if I never had it, I want to start learning how to be a conscious parent and learning how to reinvent myself so that I can continue to help my son or daughter be successful in their life. Not just successful financially, but in all areas, in their relationships, so that they're thriving, that they're happy, that they're joyful, that they're figuring out what their purpose is and living a purpose-driven life. If that's what your dreams are for your kid, then you're going to have to do some work on yourself and not just hope that your son or daughter figures it out on their own. Because I never just let you guys... I never just sat back and said, well, if my daughter becomes, a doctor or a lawyer or this amazing humanitarian in life, and it's just what she decides, then great. I never left it to chance. I always took a proactive approach to, I'm going to keep, inviting her to think outside the box. I'm going to keep planting seeds. I'm going to keep working on her. I'm going to keep going after my dream in my life to show her what it looks like. I'm going to keep challenging myself. And when I fall down, I'm going to keep dusting myself off and keep going at it so that I show you what perseverance looks like, rather than talking to you about perseverance. Because I can talk to you about it for 10 years, but just showing you it once or twice in my life and just being the example, I think, is what really hammers it down.
Right. I feel like I kind of bring this up a lot, but being the example was so important to me and is so important to me. And I really try to live by that. And I hope to be that, with my kids. But that's really, really, really important, and kids really need that because of the whole, monkey see, monkey do, or monkey be. However you're showing up is how I'm going to think is okay to be in society, or it's okay to be as a person. And I don't know if I could stress that enough for parents to understand that, but it's probably number one for me, like on the list of what I need from a parent, or what I need from, a significant other, or from a friend, is just being a good example, or being what I want myself to be too, because I see it. Now,
there's going to be a pivotal moment where you have to realize now that you get to be the example.
Right. And I kind of see that. I've already seen that. Once I heard this idea, I would think I was like 15 or something, when I heard this idea of being the example, I realized how important it was to me. And I kind of decided that this is the number one thing for me. Like, it's above, love and acceptance and tolerance. It's above all of that for me. Being the example is that important to me.
You want to hear something crazy?
Okay.
So this is really crazy. Let's talk about craziness. How about we entertain the possibility that you've always been the example?
Right.
Not just you, but everyone listening. When I'm saying you, whoever's listening to me. You are always being the example. Even if you don't consciously realize you're an example. Someone's always watching you, and they're learning from you. Especially the young kids, whether it's your niece or your nephew, everyone around you, your neighborhood kids, they're watching, and you're showing up as an example. Now, the question is are you showing up as an example in a conscious state or unconscious state? If you're unconscious, you don't know anything about being an example. You don't even care about being an example. When you're seeing it from, I'm looking at it from the conscious perspective that I am the example, then what's going on is I'm the example and I'm aware of it. And so that if I'm aware of it, then I'm going to be the best example that I could be. Because I want to be able to leave this earth and know that I was showing up in a way that empowered people, that inspired people, rather than sitting back telling kids, hey, don't follow, whatever you do, don't follow my example. Hey, whatever you do, don't follow my footsteps. That's very disempowering. But what if one day you woke up and realized, hey, you know what? Since I'm being the example to somebody, I don't know who it is, but since I'm being an example to somebody anyways, why not do it from a conscious place? Why not give it some effort? Why not, make a commitment to giving it my all and being the best example that I can be?
Right, but there's also people out there who can say, I'm not a role model, don't follow my lead, or I'm just going to do whatever I want anyways because I'm not.
But you are a role model to somebody. Someone's watching you. There's some eyes, young people that are watching you, and they want to be as cool as you are, or they want to, have whatever it is you have. So they're still going to follow you, even though you tell people, don't follow my role, don't follow my footsteps. I don't care how many times you say that. It's just what we do as human beings. We're just going to follow it. So you look on TV right now. Who are all the role models right now? We could talk
Miley Cyrus.
We could talk about Miley Cyrus. We could talk about the Kardashians, but how the way that they're living their life, they are actually being role models to these young kids that are yearning for something. What are they yearning for? They're yearning for a purpose. They're yearning to be significant. And so what they're noticing is to be significant in today's world, it's to be controversial. It's to be outrageous. It's to decide whoever you want to be is who I'm going to be, and I'm just going to do it. That's what Miley Cyrus is doing, right? Mm-hmm. There's some powerful. There's some power in that. Her deciding that she wants to be who she is and not going to, worry about what people think about her, and it's something liberating about that.
No, I think it's actually really powerful because she's just doing her.
She's doing her.
Yeah.
She's being her. But you also got to be aware and cognizant to the point that as I'm being me, there's still people watching me being me. Even though you can justify that being you all day long, justifying that it's okay and you can validate it, there's still somebody watching you and you're still being that role model. Mm-hmm. And if you have to justify it with, hey, don't follow me, then you might have to really look at who you're being.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was on a website earlier doing some research for today's topic, and I kind of wanted to talk about that survey I came across.
Absolutely.
Right.
Bring it on.
So I came across a survey titled, Are Parents Morally Responsible for Their Child's Actions? And 51% said yes, and 49% said no. So it's pretty much split right in the middle. So I started reading some of the statements that went along with the votes, and I ended up getting really into it because it was so interesting, especially the people who said no.
Yeah, let's talk about that. The ones that said no, what? No, I'm not morally responsible?
Yes. So one of the arguments on the no side said, parents are only responsible for feeding, clothing, and enrolling their children in school.
Interesting.
And that's it.
Interesting. And so I bet you if you did a survey on the results that those kids are creating, or even just did an interview with their kids and asked them about their parents, I'm almost positive you're probably going to get about 70% of them are going to say, my mom or dad wasn't there for me when I needed them. I see it all day long in my trainings when I do these transformational teen trainings. I have kids that are crying their hearts out. And some of the things that they're saying about their parents that they wish their parents would do, or they wish their parents would be, or what they need from their parents, it's heartbreaking. And it just goes to show that there's just a high level of unconscious parents out there that haven't giving themselves permission to wake up and take themselves to another level. And like you said in the last podcast that we did, the last show, you were really making a point to let everyone know that you're not bad and wrong if you're not a conscious parent. If you don't decide to wake up and start living consciously, you're not bad and wrong, because it's just your journey. No one's going to tell you that you need to be a certain way. It's just when you decide that there's some changes you want to make. Hopefully you can decide that way before it's at a critical point where it's now you're in drug rehab with your 15-year-old kid, trying to do course correction when there's some habits that are chronically happening that's going to take you 10 times the work. Rather than you deciding when your kids are 6 or 7 years old, wow, my son's starting to talk back to me. Maybe I should start take some parenting classes to get ahead of the curve, so I can learn how to reinvent myself as a parent, so I can learn how to take some of the way that he's showing up and flip it around on them. How do I be a powerful influence and be an inspiration and plant those little seeds so I can build him up rather than being in reaction and pushing against him?
Right. Parenting, like we always say, is an art form, but I think it's a little bit more than that. It's
a big commitment.
It is.
And it's funny because it's limitless. Like, where do you stop?
Well, you shouldn't. So.
I'm going to tell you from my own personal journey, there's no mountaintop. And then when you finally think that you got to a mountaintop, and as you're celebrating, one of your sons or daughter's greatest accomplishments, or you're looking back and you're going, man, I did a real good job. Just as you get there, then you look up and you realize there's another mountaintop. It never stops. It's a constant, ongoing, constant journey of consciousness, always continuing to figure out how to reinvent yourself.
Right. The way I see it is kind of like when I have to rate myself in something, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'll always say like an 8 or a 9. And, my teachers or my friends or someone will be like, why didn't you rate yourself a 10? And I'm like, because I don't want to be a 10. I never want to get there. There's always going to be room for improvement. I'm never going to be a 10.
That's awesome, because you're telling yourself that you're never going to live in the illusion that everything is fine, that everything is great. When you get to that everything is fine or everything is great, then you kind of have settled for wherever you're at. And there's nothing bad and wrong for settling, because if that's what you decide to do in your life, it's your life. No one's going to judge you for that. But when you're not experiencing certain things that you yearn for, like a deep, meaningful relationship, or I wish my kids would come and open up and share and let me in, and I wish that we can have these powerful vacations where we're sharing, connecting, and laughing, and those golden moments. When you don't have those, don't be surprised, because you didn't put that effort within yourself to work on yourself to kind of create that safe environment and invite people to come and play that game called extraordinary family. Well,
what you're talking about is kind of the idea of, if it's broke, don't fix it. People don't know that they're missing out on those things, because they think that this is okay, in which it is. They're content with this certain lifestyle. They don't notice that they're missing those relationships and those golden opportunities and those memories.
Absolutely. And that's why we're having these kinds of discussions, is to open up the possibility that, hey, take a look at yourself and do an honest self-evaluation. Don't do it from the filters of, I don't need that, or I don't agree with that. Because as long as you're judging and saying, I don't need that, I don't agree with that, you're just keep justifying that where you're at is okay, is as far as you're willing to go.
And it is okay, and you don't need that. But if you know that exists, that more than what you already have exists, why wouldn't you want it? Why wouldn't you want to go chase that?
Because I'm afraid.
Okay.
You forget that fear is the number one cause for people to stay stagnant. What am I afraid of? I'm afraid of rejection. I'm afraid of taking risks and not hitting it. I'm afraid of validating that I'm not good enough to create that. There's so much underneath the fear, that fear runs us as human beings, and that's what stops us from continuing to just get outside of our comfort zone and take ourselves to the next level. It's fear. Fear runs us when we're unconscious and we're in our head and operating from ego.
So I guess the question is, operating from the opposite of fear, which would be love, where where is that going to, I don't want to say where is that going to take me differently, but as a parent,
it takes me to being open to all possibilities. When I operate from love, I'm open. It's the distinction of love is an energy that's open. It's reaching for. It's going for it. It's taking the risk. It's trusting. It's moving forward. The love energy is moving forward. It's constantly moving forward and growing and learning and teaching and caring and giving. It's this energy that's constant flowing. Fear has you stop dead in your tracks and has you immovable. You're demobilized. You're stagnant. You're exactly where you are because you've decided that this is as far as I want to go. Because the last time I went another inch further, I got hurt. The last time I tried that, I failed. The last time I brought my walls down and trusted somebody and let them in, they took advantage of that. And so fear runs us and keeps us small, and it doesn't allow us to continue to have the courage to jump out there, getting out of our comfort zone and continuing to grow.
I like that when you were explaining love, you said open. I think that kind of just leaves room for any possibilities.
That's
it's
right.
Like unlimited.
That's right. The world is, that's what the world is. It's this huge space of unlimited possibilities for us as human beings to figure out, who do I want to be today? How do I want to show up? Do I want to show up as Alex 7.2 or am I ready for Alex 8.5? And it's funny because I play games with my clients and I'll tell them, that's awesome. You just got to, Chris, 3.9, and I give them high fives and they start laughing and they're like, well, I want to be Chris 10.0. I'm like, well, then you have to put in some extra work on there.
And because numbers are limitless, they just can keep going forever.
Yeah, when you get to 10, you look up and go, where'd that 20 come from? But when you're at a 3 and you look up, you can't see 20. You can only see 10 because your capacity is only big enough to hold the space of 0 to 10.
Well, if you're reaching for 100, you'll probably never get there because you'll just be discouraged.
That's
so
right.
When you see 10,
that's right.
You're like, okay, that's reachable. I can do that.
Yeah. So we have to look, and our capacity can only hold a number that we think is possible. So then we're working hard to get to that 10. As soon as you get to 9, you're like, you do your hands like this. You're like, yeah, I'm almost there. And then you go, well, almost where? And you're like, I'm just one notch up from 10. And then you go, have you looked up lately? And you go, no. You go, well, you should look up. And you're like, where'd that 20 come from? It's like as you continue to get to that next level, all of a sudden, it's like a video game. New chapters open up. What do you call it? New levels. New levels open up, and all of a sudden you get the key to unlock all these new levels. It's an extraordinary journey. It keeps you alive. It keeps me alive every time I come up against stuff that challenges me. It's what for me, it's what living is all about.
Right, and I think for me, I love the idea of having those limitless levels. Like I said, when I would rate myself a 9, there's always room. That to me is exciting because then I know that I'm not set in my ways forever for the rest of my life, because I think that would be terrible. I'd be scared of the rest of my life. But for some people, I don't think they necessarily like that, knowing, oh, there's more, there's always going to be more. They just want to be set, they just want to be done. Because
we go back to the fear. It scares people to know that there's other levels and there's a whole nother world of possibilities that I can tap into. That scares and overwhelms some people. Look, before we end the show, I want to add this. When you're unconscious, you're swimming around in your fears. And when you decide to wake up and cause that awareness is when you cause that conscious awakening, where you start to realize that you're responsible for everything in your life, including your kids. And you can live in the illusion and pretend you don't know that you're at the source, and you're the power source that feeds your kids and where they're going. And but I want to end the show with letting every parent know that I'm compassionate towards your growth no matter where you are, and I send you blessings and wish you the best, and I hope that you continue listening so we can grow together.
Stay tuned for more of My Conscious Dad right here on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. Welcome back to My Conscious Dad on your hometown station. We're going to go over a quick recap of the show.
We talked about powerful examples
We did talk about powerful examples.
Perfect.
We talked about making amends / Aaron Carter. If you missed that, you're going to want to watch the podcast.
Absolutely. We talked about self-reflection as a parent.
We talked about not being your parents.
Yes, we did. We also talked about raising you better than that. I raised you better than that.
Did you? We talked about why is my kid this way?
We also talked about legal versus moral responsibility as a parent. Where do you draw that line?
We talked about being a courageous parent.
We also talked about being the example. What does that look like as being the example?
We talked about course correcting your children.
We talked about are parents responsible for your child's morals?
We talked about realizing that you're always someone's role model.
We talked about what are you afraid of? Ultimately, it's fear.
We talked about not knowing what you're missing.
We talked about Alex 2.0, that next level.
And we talked about unlimited possibilities.
And if any of those pique your curiosity, you're definitely going to want to go back to the podcast. You can reach that on KHTS hometown station and listen to our podcast. We appreciate you guys tuning in.
I appreciate you guys listening to us. So you have a Superwoman workshop that we talked about last week.
Yes, I'm excited about that. Tomorrow we have about 15 powerful women that are going to show up tomorrow ready to take their lives on, do some learning, do some growing, realizing how amazing you are as a woman in today's world. And I'm really excited to just open up that space for I know you're going to be there, but open it up for everybody to get in there and just, decide to take themselves to the next level, including myself.
Even though it's a woman's workshop.
Absolutely.
So if I'm a woman listening and I'm wondering what you, a man, can offer to me, what would you say? Well,
I think the distinctions that I talk about helps everybody. Teaching about, personal power, how do you get stuck in not reaching your personal power. I've coached people for the last 20 years, and when it comes to women, I'm very sympathetic for the kind of pressures that they put on themselves and the judgments and the lack of realizing how magnificent they are and how beautiful and powerful and loving and how, the woman, the essence of a woman and their soul is so amazingly creative as well as healing. You guys don't realize how powerful you really are. And I'm really excited to get in there and open up those possibilities so that you guys can start to remember how magnificent and powerful you really are.
Well, thank you for doing this workshop.
Absolutely.
I feel like I'm very excited, and I can't wait to share my experience with everyone next week. So next week's show, we're actually talking about authentic parenting. What is authenticity and why your kids need you to be authentic?
Yeah, absolutely. Authenticity is, I think, when each human being stops playing the game of pretending to be something or somebody and just finally surrendering and saying, I'm just going to figure out who I am and I'm just going to be me. And it becomes so effortless. It becomes so freeing. There's a sense of freedom when you just discover your authentic self and you can finally now relax and there's so much peace and the world kind of responds to your discovering the authentic you, and I can't wait to talk about that. We're going to paint the picture of what it looks like, what it doesn't look like, and we're just going to open up a whole powerful discussion about authenticity, and hopefully we inspire people to want to start that journey of discovering their authentic self.
Right, and we're probably going to also be talking about the ego a little bit, which
we always
love to talk about. Thank you for joining us today on My Conscious Dad with me, Jazmine Urbina, and My Conscious Dad, Alex Urbina. We're here every Friday from 1 to 2 p.m. right here on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS.